Hi folks, it's Doc with Freezer Max again. I'm out here in my office in the garage by my chest freezer. I'm bringing you today 3 tips on how to not waste food in your chest freezer, how to not throw out frozen food. You know you've done that because I've done that too. You're guilty and I'm guilty. I'm going to give you some hacks on how not to do that. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the food that you buy for your household is the second largest expenditure that you have every year, second only to your housing expenses. The average family of 4, let me get this right, the average family of 4 in the United States spends $11,000 in grocery bills every year. That's not food that you're buying when you go out to restaurants. That's only food that you're buying in groceries and preparing at home. Here's another statistics that's going to break your heart. Do you know what, on average, the average family of 4, how much food they throw out every year? According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's in the neighborhood of $250 year after year after year after year. And right there is one of the major culprits, because we bury food in the bottom of our freezers, we forget it's there, or it ices up and it has to get thrown out. $250 a year. If over 10 years, start to add it up. It's a lot of money. That's why Freezer Max was developed, to stop that cycle and save that money. So I'm going to give you 3 tips today on how to break that cycle and not waste food in your freezer. You ready? Here we go. Tip number 1. You must rotate food in your freezer. What does that mean? It means that you have to use older food before you use newer food. Now you can do that if you label all the packages in your freezer, but you have to have a way to get to the older food first. That's where the Freezer Max magnetic organizer comes in, because what it does is it tells you not only what is in your freezer before you ever open your freezer, but it tells you when you put that food in there. So rotating food, if you have an organizer, becomes simple. Here, for instance, in this particular freezer my wife and I have for our home, on the lower level on the left side, that's a basket that's right down here. I know there are chicken thighs. We eat a lot of chicken thighs. We like to grill chicken thighs. We have a bunch of chicken thighs in that basket. How many? Hey, you know what? We got around 40 chicken thighs in that basket, but we didn't buy them all at the same time. We bought some of them in March of 21. We bought some of them in September this month of 21. Rotating your food means you have to use those older thighs first so you don't allow them to age out. It's a simple thing. If you know when those were purchased, you go into your freezer, you get that package, you take it out. That's tip number 1. You have to rotate your food that you put into your freezer. Okay, how about tip number 2? Here's tip number 2. If tip number 1 is you've got to rotate your food, tip number 2 is really pretty self-explanatory. You have to use the food that's in your freezer. Now I get it. Before we had the Freezer Max system, I didn't know what was in the freezer. I thought I knew, except the food that was buried in the bottom gets lost. With an organizer, you have to use the food that's in your freezer as you're buying food, or maybe even if you're going to the grocery to fill out your grocery list. You can look at the organizer and say, okay, I have chicken thighs, I have steak, I have pork loins. You have to be willing to use that food. If you don't, what happens? That food ages out in spite of the fact that you know it's in there. So it takes some discipline, I get it, but when you have an organizer and you know what's in your freezer, then use it to meal plan and use the food that you have in your freezer. It'll save you from throwing out food that gets old. Okay, tip number 3. So we've already covered tip number 1. You have to rotate the food. Number 2, you have to use the food that's in your freezer. Tip number 3, and really the reason that a lot of us, it certainly is true for my wife and I, the reason we have the freezer, a chest freezer, is so we can put bulk food in that freezer. You know, when you go to your grocery store and they have unadvertised specials there, maybe you go to your grocery and they have chicken on sale. Well, why not buy bulk chicken when it's cheaper, when it's on sale in your grocery? Put it in your chest freezer, use that, your shopping list, your grocery list, to make the purchases that you're filling your freezer up with, and then use that cheaper food as it's available. It's a tip that'll save you money, because you're buying food in bulk that's cheaper than if you're just going and buying a package or two. I know we, for instance, I've said before, we love to grill chicken thighs. We buy, just my wife and I, buy these mega packs of chicken thighs, break them apart, put them in our chest freezer. We know how many are in there. We get them cheaper than the small packs, and then we use those up. We keep track of how many we have, and then we're getting close to running out. We go and buy another bulk pack. It'll save your family amazing amounts of money if you buy when the food is either number one on sale, or if you buy in bulk and utilize your freezer for bulk food storage. So those are your 3 hacks. Rotate your food, use the food that's in your freezer, buy food in bulk, or buy food that's on sale to utilize your freezer like it's meant to be used. I hope these tips and hacks have been a blessing to you and your family. I hope they'll save you money more than anything else. They'll save you a lot of frustration. It'll save you a lot of time. But this time, I hope it saves you money. Remember, there's more videos coming once a week about tips and hacks and tricks on using your chest freezers and the Freezer Max system. Hit the subscribe button down on the bottom, right down there, so you don't miss anything. This is Doc. I'm out for Freezer Max.